Hey friends, this is Waylon Lewis in Boulder, Colorado, and I wanted to talk about writing today. Already bowed. Oh yeah. So I just bowed in respect and friendliness to you. It's a little Buddhist tradition. You can bow back if you'd like to. So we have an online school called Elephant Academy, and in it we teach about writing, we teach about social media. Those are the two courses, writing, social media. You can also do both together, like high five yourself, namaste. The writing course is coming up right now, and there's $75 off if you join right now. It's elephantjournal.com/academy. I put that link in the title. But this whole thing is not just a pitch. This is about how, if you are a writer, but you're not writing, how many people are writers, but you're not writing here? Or you're a writer and you're writing, but you're not sharing that writing. How many of us? Anyone? Give me a smiley face emoticon or a heart or something. Writer's block, not sharing your writing. What is up with that? So there's a great joy as a writer, as a singer, as an artist, as a craftsperson in sharing your work, right? If you share your work and people feel it and connect, we go from feeling like lonely to community. And you know, the blue zone thing, right? There's 5 aspects to a blue zone. One of them is community, is not feeling isolated. People know about that blue zone thing. It's all over the world. There's 5 of them. Is where there's high concentrations of people who live to be over 100. One of the characteristics of these blue zones is constant community, no isolation. And from a Buddhist point of view, isolation is something you can make friends with. Nothing's wrong with being lonely, to be clear, but it's basically making friends with your own sense of self and loneliness and engaging in community. So if you're a writer not sharing your writing, what is that? Obviously, perfectionism is a great big obstacle for a lot of us. We either do things super mindlessly, like if I'm a perfectionist, I might just make crappy nachos that are awful for myself at home when no one's around, because who cares? And I might eat them standing up, or more likely while watching a video on YouTube or whatever. So there's this sort of mindless thing, like, forget about it. This isn't really fit for public consumption, no pun intended, when really you could make the world's best, yummiest, most beautiful nachos. And then of course you'd have to Instagram photo them and share them for others. But there's this level of perfectionism where we only share food that looks perfect on Instagram. I like to do bachelor Instagram photos of my plate that's super disgusting after I've eaten it because it was so lovely, and I share those on my Instagram just to kind of give a little FU, excuse me, to that perfectionist tendency. I also am guilty of sharing beautiful photos of my beautiful vegan food and trying to convert people to realizing vegan food doesn't mean you're just eating your table. So anyway, let's get to the subject. So if you're a perfectionist about your writing, then you're never going to share anything, right? Ernest Hemingway is someone I really admire and love as a writer, but in a way, he's the world's worst example. And so many people follow his example because he was so successful in that he loved to brag about how, like, on the last page of For Whom the Bell Tolls, he edited it 63 times until it was just perfect. And he was able to do that because he was a craftsperson, because he spent countless hours whittling away and writing, and he loved it, and he had a brain for that. I personally would probably want to bang my head on that table if I was editing more than, say, a dozen times. And even a dozen times, you start getting away from the freshness and the connection with not only the potential audience, but your own original words. So in Buddhism, we talk about how a Buddha, not the Buddha, but a different kind of Buddha, was born basically straight out of a lotus flower from the muddy lake. He was just born straight out of it, and he was a little kid, but he was like fully realized, fully awakened. And that's always an analogy for our insights. Our beautiful wisdom can arise straight out of the fertilizer of our crappy neurosis, which is like the mud. Nothing's wrong with that mud, really. It's the fertilizer, right? So I'm all over the place, but it's all good stuff so far, so we're going to keep going. So if you're a writer, perfectionism, forget it. You're never going to be Ernest Hemingway. You're never going to write the great American novel. Forget it. is fine. Get rid of that stuff. Who wants to write it? And once you do that, you kind of force yourself to call your own bluff, your own high expectations. Waylon Lewis is going to wear a tux and people are going to give him a Nobel Peace Prize. And, I'm going to be doing book readings and girls will love me. Like, forget all that stuff. Forget it. It's an obstacle. And the cosmic joke, as we would say in Buddhism, is once you forget that stuff, you can actually do it. If you want to have big success, if you want to write the great American novel or wherever you live, you can do that, but you can't do it until you let go of that being your ambition. If your ambition is to do that, ambition is good and it's motivating. Again, it's not black or white, but just let go of that stuff. Let's talk about, what do you want to write? What's in your heart? What's in your experience? What's in your mind? What's helpful and needed and fun to write about? And that's what we talk about in Elephant Academy is catharsis. When you feel catharsis, when my friend Vanessa here, my colleague, we were talking about doing this video. She was like, what do you enjoy about writing? Well, I really enjoy, I'm walking around and I'm thinking about my life and I'm experiencing my life and I'm angry that someone is idling their car for 10 hours while they're on their phone. Like, how can we fight climate change when people can't even think to not idle their car for an hour when they're on their phone? You're wasting gas that was like drilled in Canada or in Saudi Arabia just mindlessly. Appreciate that gas. It took a lot to get it here. Don't just burn it. Anyway, so that's a little obsession. And when I just walking around and I see someone polluting, I get in a funky mood. But if I can write about that and talk and research it, is it actually bad for the environment? Is mindfulness kind of a cool thing and mindlessness isn't that fun? And maybe we could actually maybe there's alternatives, and I share that and I find out other people also are not into idling. Like, there's a whole movement among parents to get parents to stop idling when they're picking up their kids because it's really bad for developing children. Then I don't feel alone. I feel like I can inspire others. I don't have to be cranky about it. I can make it more constructive, although criticism is great. And wow, and that's like the most boring example, right? You could take a super inspiring example, like, I'm in love, but what is love? What is love? What is love? How do I come back to the present moment? Love is friendship, not this fantasy expectations of perfection in the other person. And I can write about something like that. And then other people can, in the 2.0, meaning give and take of the web, unlike a book. Everyone likes to say they love books, but let's face it, you write a blog, you can get comments back and there's a real give and take. And so it's kind of magical. You can also share a video in your blog. It's kind of like in 2000, what's her face wrote Harry Potter, and it was a magical thing that the newspaper could move with images. Well, we have that in blogs. The YouTube video can move, It's really cool. So it's an exciting time to be a writer, and you can make a living being a writer. And we train you in the tools and the techniques to be not only a genuine writer, share catharsis without falling into emotionalism, i.e. getting high off your own, oh, I'm going through this and that, and trying to show that off for likes, Instead, just sharing it genuinely. You feel genuine catharsis. People genuinely connect with you. It genuinely benefits them. You have a genuine friendship and relationship with them. And then out of that, you have genuine success that can help pay your bills. And that's awesome. So to get a little bit more into what stops us. So what stops would-be writers from sharing your writing? Well, there's a story. My parents' Buddhist teacher, Trungpa Rinpoche, there was a story where all the beat poets, William Burroughs, Allen Ginsberg, all these guys and ladies, were studying meditation with him. And one of them, William Burroughs, was like about to go on his first meditation retreat. And he was like, I'll be damned if I don't bring my journal and write down any good ideas I have. I'm not going to sit around in a room for a week, have great ideas, and then not write them down. That's crazy. Trungpa Rinpoche said, no, you're not going to bring that journal with you. You're going to meditate. You're going to confront your own boredom. You're going to confront the emptiness of life, which is actually not a bad thing. It actually gives rise to all the beauty and connection in life. Trying to get rid of that emptiness is what leads to claustrophobic relationships and to fear-based living, which is often called positivity. Fear-based living is often called positivity, just to repeat that. There's a little background noise. So Waylon Burroughs was like, I don't care about your little Buddhist this and that. I'm bringing my journal. And Trungpa Rinpoche said, you are too attached to your ideas. You don't trust your mind. You need to relax and actually trust that if you have a good idea, like my mom used to say, it'll come back to you. You don't need to like write it down. Writing it down is also fine in other contexts, but we need to be able to trust our minds. So we see that mentality and that sort of discussion that Trungpa Rinpoche and Waylon Burroughs were having in a lot of things. Allen Ginsberg, another beat poet, would always get up. There's nothing less inspiring and less fun, right? Am I right? Than watching someone get up on stage and read from their notes. They've spent an hour or two carefully crafting the perfect message, and it's so boring to watch because they're reading their notes, they're not connecting. And then you go to a wedding, and we all see these in toast or roast. If you have a good someone who's comfortable and relaxed and just gets up there and they have some thoughts in their head. I'm going to talk about the groom, I'm going to tell an embarrassing, humiliating story or two, but then I'm going to wrap up with their genuine love, blah, blah, blah. But they just kind of go for it. And it's just in the present moment and they're making eye contact and it's fun. And you feel like you just witnessed something genuine. Same with poetry reading, same with whatever. So, even what we call freestyle, there's so many tricks in freestyle to like, kind of which words you can rhyme and you kind of fake it. You're not actually being spontaneous. I remember when I was really in love with Jack Kerouac and his sort of spontaneity, I got up at the end of a Buddhist month, a Dauten, where we meditated, and I tried to do this like Kerouac rap kind of thing, and it sucked. And what was so cool is my meditated mind, because I just meditated for a month, relaxed my trying to do this Kerouac kind of thing. And a couple sentences in of sucking, and no one liked it and I didn't like it, I just relaxed and I started just talking and communicating and listening, making eye contact. And it became great and beautiful and fun and joyful and genuine. So that's what we teach in Elephant Academy. $75 off if you apply before Saturday evening. And the link is in the title. Was there any little anecdote or story I was also going to touch on? There's one other, I thought. That's about it. So if you have any comments or questions, I'll look real quick. Did you see any?
And it's midnight on Saturday.
Yeah. I say evening because midnight means different things in different time zones. Any comments or questions? Transpoeticas. This theme sounds like a sign insight to me, exactly what I keep looking for. Poetry, thanks, you bet. I like living alone. I can meditate whenever I want. Yeah, I love being alone too. None of this is a knock on being alone. Being alone is one of Elephant's favorite things, one of my favorite things. But community and solitude can be like two hands or two people making love. It's a beautiful thing. Let's get together. What if you aren't a writer but want to start a podcast? Would this help? So yeah, we have a writing course and we have a social media course. I recommend doing both, but they're separate. You can do the social media, and that will talk a lot more about video series and podcast stuff. Lotus Bloom, when we hang up, you can save this, but it'll also be on youtube.com/elephant journal. All my videos are at youtube.com/elephant journal, or they're on elephantjournal.com if you search Walk the Talk Show or something. Holly Conger, just finished the Fall Elephant Academy, and it was one of the best things I've ever done for myself. If you're on the fence about doing the program, just hop the fence and do it for yourself. Thank you, Holly. Very sweet of you. And Emily, that's the kind of comment we can save. All right. So forget perfectionism, forget your fantasies of success based on like Hollywood movies or whatever. Come back to what do you want to share? So a couple years ago, I wrote a book, my first book, called Things I Would Like to Do With You. And it was simply about my experience. I was single. I was 39, I think, at the time. I've gotten younger now. I'm only 32 now. And I was thinking about my relationships, what I could learn from them, good and bad, mostly good, fortunately. And, what kind of relationship could I possibly commit to, given that everything changes all the time? So that's what I wrote my book on. And I used the Buddhist teachings to hold up my experience. So I wasn't writing from the point of view of an expert. And maybe that's the final thing I'll offer. Forget being an expert. Write about what you know. So it's good to be an expert in what you know, but don't try to be perfection. Just try to be genuine. Talk about your experience, and you'll find out magically other people have had that experience. I remember the very first time, I think we got Bob Thurman in here. The very first time I read The Town and the City by Kerouac, he writes about that first falling in love moment. And I remember I was young when I read that. And I was like, wow, that's the feeling I had when I fell in love. And you feel somehow it's a joyful feeling to realize that you're not alone. You would think you would want to think, oh, I'm the only one to have experienced this love before. But when you find out other people also fall in love, you're like, wow, that's kind of magical that different people all over the world can have the same exact kind of feeling. So that's the connection, the catharsis that happens with writing, whether it's about, what do you call it? Idling your car or falling in love. So thank you very much. If you're interested in more, this is just one of the little kind of lessons. And when we do it in the Academy, it's a conversation, which is even more fun and dynamic. elephantjournal.com/academy. And I hope to you join for our writing course. Thank you very much. If you like on Facebook, you can sign up for all the videos by clicking the button when I hang up.